everybody? What's going on, man? It's your boy Stephen Qualls II, aka Mr. Qualified. You feel me? And we are back for another episode of the Wright Quality. I gotta let Miguel introduce himself. Like, he gotta do his intro because I'm too excited to get into this episode right now. But yeah, man, remind the people who you are again so we can get right into it.
Miguel Emilio Brown, full government out there now. Do what you want with that information.
Don't necessarily do what you want with that information, though.
Hey, my parents sent my social security card through the mail. That thing was up and gone. So it is what it is. It is crazy. It's Sunday, February 5th.
Yes.
Trade, the deed is done. Everyone that knows. So I say
the deed is done. Yeah, the deed is done, man. Luckily, I'm in a basketball chat where I don't miss much basketball information. Granted, I have Woj tweets come to my phone anyway, but the basketball chat be pretty on it. So when I saw come across my screen today that the Mavericks have finalized this trade for Kyrie Irving, let's take a step back a little bit before we even get into the weeds of what happened. Let's take a step back. Let's remember last year, right? Last year, Kyrie basically says, I want out, trade me. Followed by KD saying, I want out, trade me. And somehow, some way, they both still ended up with the Nets at the beginning of the season. The season starts. They started pretty bleh, you know what I'm saying? Pretty normal. Then, of course, Kyrie had the whole, anti-semantic film thing and that whole episode and carrying on. And I just feel like for a long time, Kyrie hasn't been able to really focus on basketball, whether that be by his choice or whether it be by the media's choice. I do think that both parties have played a role. I do not think it's solely just Kyrie, but that's neither here nor there. When Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were together on the basketball court, they looked like the duo we all know that they can be and have shown flashes of being at times. Was going on a win streak, had pushed themselves up to like second or third in the East, where it was kind of like tweedling beneath. Wow, tweedling beneath. We're gonna cut that
one more time.
We're gonna cut that. They were in between, those two positions. KD goes out with the MCL, which he just can't catch a break when it comes to those. But so he's out, and then we see Kyrie Irving continue to just be the guy that we saw him be in Cleveland, that we saw flashes of in Boston. Like, we know that Kyrie is one of the most skilled players in the league.
Yep.
Drops the bombshell last week that, hey, I want out. Now, granted, I really want to get your take on this aspect of it as well before we get into the actual trade. So, were you confused when he requested the trade? Because I wasn't necessarily confused, nor was I extremely surprised, but it seemed like they were at a place where I felt like they were going to be able to maintain until KD came back, and I felt like they were still going to be able to make somewhat of a respectable push, in the postseason. But what were your thoughts when the request for the trade first came out?
I think taken off guard, absolutely. Came out of left field. I thought that they were pretty solid, that they were just going to wait until playoffs and kind of do what they do. Am I surprised that Kyrie is asking for a trade? No. This man, ever since, Cleveland, they asked, are you going to leave us like LeBron? No, I'm not going to do that. Dipped. Boston, they asked, are you going to re-sign the extension? He's like, I am a Boston Celtic for life. Gone.
He did say that.
And then he ends up in Brooklyn. He's like, oh, man, I'm never going to leave 7. I can't leave 7. That's my guy. Gone. That I'm not shocked. I am not shocked in the slightest. And talk about poetic that he ends up in Dallas, who we have talked about from Mark Cuban. He is trying to assemble when he had KP back in the day, he was assembling a type of lineup where it's like, he's trying to do this without us. And now Kyrie ends up there. Fitting, very fitting. He goes to the most talented Euro player that we've ever seen outside of Giannis. I think it's going to be pretty fun to watch offensively. Defensively, I have no idea what they're doing. It's like Brooklyn trading away Claxton and Karis LeVert for Kyrie, where it's like you're getting rid of the nucleus that, and Jared Allen, mind you, you're getting rid of the nucleus that this team needs. You already have offensive superstars in KD and Kyrie. You don't need James Harden in there to add to it. Like, you need defenders and big men. And then sure as hell, they see they see Milwaukee game 7. They have no big men or defenders to stop Giannis. So same thing in Dallas now, where it's like, you're getting rid of Dorian Finney-Smith, who on paper doesn't seem like, wow, we're getting rid of Dorian Finney-Smith for Kyrie and Dinwiddie. Like, that seems like a pretty solid trade outright. But you're getting rid of a first rounder, multiple seconds, Dorian and Spencer, who all fill Luka's cup to where it's like he doesn't need the ball to score. Dorian is a defender who will lock up 1 through 4, sometimes 5 if he's not seeing Jokic. It's like, why are you getting rid of these pieces that are Luka's young too? Like, you're all those first and second rounders, they matter. For Milwaukee, less so, because like we don't use our draft picks well in the first place, and we're a little bit more middle of the pack age-wise, where it's like we're looking for vets and something else to get that championship status. Dallas has a few more rooms of flexibility where it's just like, what? I get it. I get it. Win now. But Mark Cuban has done this not once, but twice now with the KP trade. And lo and behold, if Luka's going to be bouncing in 2 or 3 years, I think that you can look at some of these moves. He's like, oh, duh, who wouldn't trade for a Kristaps Porzingis, that unicorn at that time, him and Luka? That's got to work. And then now, who wouldn't trade for a uber talented guard in Kyrie? But with KP, with injury wise, and also like, can he play as an actual 5 in this NBA? It's the same thing you can look at with Kyrie. It's like, is he going to give you his whole contract? Like, is he going to give you, like actual games played? Because this man is everywhere but the court, news wise. So I have no clue what this does to them. Like, yes, short term it looks great, but in the long run, your core, man, you got to look at that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting trade, and I guess I am a bit surprised by it, because I guess I'm more surprised by Dallas because, I mean, the Nets knew they were going to have to make a move or risk him walking. So at least you get, somebody or something in return. And maybe the picks work out for them. But more so to the Dallas point first, I don't think the KP trade was a bad trade. I think that it would make sense to try to pair a player like Porzingis with Luka. Like, I could see the idea that their style of play would correlate. It just didn't work out. On the other hand, I don't really get what the vision is for this backcourt of Kyrie and Luka, because what backcourt are they guarding in the NBA? I just want to be completely honest. What backcourt are they guarding in the NBA? And like you said, when you remove a glue guy like Dorian Finney-Smith, it's like, unless there's some other plan, like unless maybe they got something up their sleeve or they plan on moving some other pieces or trying to do something else before the trade deadline to kind of still beef up defensively, or at least beef up their wings, because Luka's usage rate is already insane. Kyrie's usage rate was insane, and they both have to have a relatively high usage rate to be at their best. So I'm just trying to figure out, one, how those touches work, and two, what is the goal, or what is the expectation for this season? Not only in terms of how far you all go in the season, are you all going to extend this man? Is it worth it?
Because like you said, defensively, it doesn't make sense. You have a starting 5 of Kyrie, Luka, Dwight Powell, Christian Wood, who historically doesn't play defense that well, and Tim Hardaway Jr. Where? Who's getting stops in that lineup? I honestly don't know.
It would have made way more sense to just put Tim Hardaway Jr. in the trade. That trade would have made way more sense to me. If you're going to trade Dinwiddie and Hardaway and say, I'm bringing in Kyrie, but I'm keeping everybody else, fine. Okay, this makes a little bit more sense. You know what I'm saying?
Because it makes no sense.
And I mean, I don't know if that's like who the Nets wanted. If the Nets said we want them, because I mean, it would make sense for the Nets to want to get a defensive player. But also, if I'm Dallas, I'm in control of this situation because the Nets have to sell. Like they low key kind of have to take to some degree what I offer, and I don't have to offer one of my better defensive players if I'm already looking at a situation where, okay, if we're gonna go get this man, who we give up, who we don't. I just don't see how Dorian Finney-Smith was on the chopping block for that.
I think I maybe found it. Mark Cuban trades like a billionaire. He trades like he's got money to blow, because the comparison with that KP trade, I remember the announcement came out, Shams tweeted, Kristaps Porzingis wants a trade, and people were like, oh my God, that's so weird. And then within a minute, it was Kristaps Porzingis is going to Dallas. Like right when we found out. The same thing with Kyrie, where it's like no longer than a day, where it's just like, oh, we're sitting on this. Everyone's photoshopping the Kyrie and Lakers jersey. It was happening. And then no longer than a day, boom, Kyrie to Dallas. It's like that man gives no time to think. For anyone else, it's like, I have the money here. Take it. We'll figure it out later. So that may be the root of this, because like that is hasty for someone with so much drama attached to them and so much off the court issues that they have to deal with. It's concerning.
It's a huge risk. It's a huge risk. And I guess what I just don't understand is this, even if this is a right now move, the trade didn't make you a contender, right? So even if it's a move for right now, but for Dallas specifically, because the Nets had to make a move, but for Dallas specifically, I'm not saying, like, if Kyrie is who you want, I'm not saying don't go get him per se, but also at the same time, to give up who you gave up. And on top of that, understanding that he has a situation where you're going to have to re-sign him. And if not, what was really the point of bringing him here to play with Luka for 3 or 4 months if he's going to leave anyway? I just really don't see this producing any benefits for anybody involved. But more importantly, probably what more people care about anyway, what does this mean for Kevin Durant?
Oh, that boy gone. Because if I'm him and I'm sitting in that locker room and I look to my left and I got Nicholas Claxton, and I look to my right, I see Ben Simmons as my cornerstones, I'm gone. He already came out on wax saying, how am I supposed to win with these cats here when Kyrie was hurt? He has already noted saying, I can't win with these guys. You think that Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith, they're going to give him any solace? Hell no. Absolutely.
They're not.
That man is as good as gone, but it's just like, how soon, how long, you know? Because I know Phoenix is beating down their door like, can I please get a little bit of that? I have one fresh DeAndre Ayton for you. That man does not want to stay here either. Please take his ass. Do they make that trade? Does it happen? I think everybody's looking for him. I don't think that Phoenix gets it done. I don't think they have enough unless they throw D-Book in that conversation. But if you're really looking for a ring, I don't know. It's any number of teams are looking at him. It's who is going to give the most tantalizing offer, who has the most to give up. OKC reunion? I don't know. I don't think you want to, but they have everything to give up. They do
literally have the mother load to give up.
Or they send him to Mormon country. Utah and OKC. Danny Ainge is forming something over there. What is happening over there? Was it for this?
No. I promise you it was not. And KD will never go to Utah. That much I'll bet.
Is it his voice?
It's probably 60-40. He probably has a lot to say. I would say KD would have, especially at this point, because KD's been the more loyal out the duo. He's done more out the duo for the franchise. I don't want to say play more because he did miss that entire first year, but nonetheless, because now, do you move KD before the trade deadline? Or if you don't move him, do you just play out the season with, like, what type of expectation? Because...
No clue. They're in limbo. Like
what's that about?
For the Brooklyn Nets experience, it was here. It was gone so quickly. They swore they had a ring. They were talking some big stuff. And still to this day, ever since Oh man, Giannis got Kyrie intentionally hurt. Just wait until we're full strength. Rah rah. Congratulations. Your whole future is played once again. They have doubled back on that Brooklyn Nets Boston trade of old, and they've history repeated itself. They swore they had one. RIP. Everyone is gone. KD is next. Be ready.
What's more sad about this is before KD and Kyrie showed up to Brooklyn, they were actually on their way to becoming a respectable team in the East. I mean, they when they had D'Lo, I want to say Dinwiddie was there at the time. LeVert, the culture that they had there was great, and I felt like if the right star or the right players had came, it would have been a great situation. But what happens is I forgot which trade happened that sent LeVert the other way. Was that the Harden trade? So, right, okay, so you get KD and Kyrie playing in their first year. They make the trade for Harden that gets rid of basically all the other pieces that they gave no time to grow and develop alongside the two stars. So you bring in Harden, and yes, you have this trio. Now, I always say this. I'm always completely honest. Fully healthy, does Brooklyn probably beat Milwaukee in 2021? Absolutely. I don't see us beating them in 2021 if they're at full strength. But they weren't. That's just the reality of the situation. Even so, I don't know if that team is hard. I don't think that Phoenix it would have been head over heels like Phoenix would have beat them. But I feel like Phoenix was a more complete team. And I don't think that scoring outburst would have won them an NBA championship that season. I just don't I don't see that. But we never know. We didn't see that matchup. But
Yeah.
for their peak to have been the what could have been for players getting injured, just for the next year to come around and Kyrie and Harden bump heads, and then Harden's out, and you bring Ben Simmons in, and I don't really know what they were thinking in that trade to begin with. But Ben Simmons doesn't offer you anything. So you have KD who's wasted 2 years here. You have Kyrie who's basically wasted 3 years here, and so now it's just like you said, okay, what does it really matter? The last 3 years in Brooklyn. What does it matter if this whole 7-Eleven deal that the league was supposed to be so scared about? What happened?
It broke their culture. It took away their future. And now what? Now you got scorched earth. Everyone's unhappy. All of your young guys that you had are gone, thriving in different spots. Yuck. Yeah. Talk about an anti-rebuild. Oof.
Not an anti-rebuild. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting where they go from here, whether that's in the near future in terms of moving KD or whether that's in this offseason. Because unless KD has something else up his sleeve in regards to somebody else coming to Brooklyn, I don't see him staying. And I believe he has 1 year after this left on his contract.
It's all bad. It's all bad. If we're talking where I want to see him go most, send him to Portland, send him to Minnesota. I think those are the two most fun teams I think I could see him with. Him and Dame, and then him and Ant. I want to see those. Those are just two off the top of my head where I would like to see him play. I think him in Portland as that last guy, throw Jeremy Grant to the 3. That makes them pretty special. Minnesota, they've just been in hell for so long. They need something nice. Send them Rudy Gobert. Why not? Rudy Gobert for KD and whatever. I don't care. Make it happen.
I don't understand why you say these things that are extremely unrealistic.
Oh, like I said, in a dream scenario, send him. Dame has needed help forever. That man has been in squalor for. I just want him to see a good team. That's all. And then Minnesota.
Dame doesn't see a good team because Dame doesn't want to see a good team. At least not a contending. At least not a contending team. That's the difference. Because Dame has forced a lot of his teams to be contenders, but he only can do so much.
Quickly on that though, before we jump to this next topic, somebody brought up a very, very interesting point that I want your take on. Would you say that Dame is our AI?
Culturally, no, but career-wise, probably. Culturally, I would say it's Ja more than it is Dame, because like AI like culturally changed the game from like they had a dress code for these boys. They were on some other stuff back when AI was there. So it's like I think the same thing we see with AI, we see with Ja, where it's like he's changed the game in the sense of like in terms of what's the word I'm looking for? Just like multimedia engagement and like where we see numbers go online, Ja has eyes on him more than like any of those guys. Like we saw in the playoffs last year, that man had more tweets than buckets at times, but he was getting crazy engagement on whatever he did all year long. Like
more tweets than buckets is a wild statement. I just want you to understand that.
They tracked it for a second. Like he was on a pace. But like I think culturally, AI is similar to Ja nowadays, where it's just like they have like their finger on the pulse. Like they just like get it in every aspect. And then I think in terms of like just going through hell and like really working to take them. Sorry, had to set my drill up. In terms of going through what they go through in a career sense and just playing for teams that aren't getting you the help that you truly deserve, I'd say it's damn close, because like he's not having like Eric Snow and 40-year-old Dikembe Mutombo to drag to the postseason. But you know, like every team has been like one little piece away that they're like, we think we can try it without it. They had Al-Farouq Aminu as their stopper for years. They have like Nurkic as their prime big man, who like, don't get me wrong, all like both great players, both like serve a role, but I don't know. Like you can only do so much with him and CJ that they were doing for 10 years about. Like they tried that and they did. Couldn't get it done. And now it's like they're at this weird middle ground where it's like, okay, you're developing Anthony Simons and you still have the same core with Dame and you're still competing, but you're still trying to get young guys and develop guys like Shaedon Sharpe to be something. Like it's scary similar between him and AI's career in terms of will they end with the ring? I would say Chris Paul almost as well, but he's had situations where he could have got it done. He was damn close. Couple times. Clippers, I had my money on them every year. I was like, they're my dark horse. Come on, big three, we got to get it done. And they'd never find a 3-guard to supply him. They put in like Ron Butler on like their 10th year trying to do something else. So yeah, I'd say Dame is really close to AI in terms of going through a painful career with no ring, but still being like a Hall of Famer and like well respected all throughout the league. So yeah, but Ja is that guy.
That is an extremely interesting answer. I don't disagree, but when I was originally prompted with it, I didn't know how to feel, because when you first hear it, it's kind of like the face you made. It's kind of like I don't know if I've ever thought about it, but you start to think of some of the similarities. However, here's where I get torn. So
if we're talking about skill, if we're talking about being on the basketball court, who are you taking? But is it that I mean, points per shot, if you're gonna go based off of the three, sure. But I don't know if I could easily say, like, just because the game has changed, that I'll take Dame over AI. Because it's not like AI's game doesn't translate to today's game. You know, so I'm torn, but then also I'm like, okay, yeah, we can talk about the struggling teams and this, that, and the third, but I feel like we still have to account for accolades. And Dame doesn't have an MVP.
Okay.
Oh, I've seen the Twitter discourse between him and surprisingly Josh Allen. Got the same graphics where it's like rookie year, 0 all this, 0 all that, and then now it's like 1 scoring championship, beard grown.
I'm weak
Every time, it doesn't fail.
But Dame doesn't even have that. Like AI has a scoring title. AI was the steals leader for 3 consecutive years during his career. Like AI has a few notches over Dame. Like Dame made the 75th anniversary team. So did AI. They got about the same number of like all NBA selections, but AI has more first team selections than Dame does. Similar like all-star game appearances, stuff like that.
That's tough for me just because I feel like the bar has gotten way higher now, where it's like you go back in the day where it's just like let's be real. The number of superstars, quote unquote superstars in the league has gotten to a point where it's insane.
But then what's the comparison? What's the comparison? We cannot, I don't feel like we can knock everything that AI did and basically say that he did it in an era where there weren't as many superstars. I get that. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad argument to add in there or a bad thing to use for consideration. But it's also like Dame is in a position where the man could average 30 if he wanted to. He put up enough shots, but between missing games, between whatever else, and that's not to say that Dame's stat line is bad either, because their career numbers are about the same as well. And Dame will probably catch up in certain other accolade areas like All-Star game, all NBA selections, all that stuff by the end of his career. So I agree that that's not like, I'm not trying to use that to say that that's the difference. You know what I'm saying? But I can't definitively say that that's the like albeit comparison that I will make. Like if I would say what's one person from today's game, take the last I want to say decade, but really kind of the last like 5 to 7, 8-ish that I would say is this generation's AI. I don't think Dame is not the first person that come to mind. It would be Ja. I think that people see the scoring. I think that people see the bad teams or like can get far in the postseason, but can never get over that hump to get to the finals or have a chance at a championship, even though AI got there once. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying it's not close. I just don't feel like when you really sit down and go through the numbers, I really don't think it's a question of if he's that comparison. I don't think he's that guy. If that's who we're using. Yeah.
I got one for you back. Is Paul George this era's T-Mac?
Ooh. At first thought, I would have to say yeah. I would have to say yeah.
Playoffs, really weird for them. Both very skilled wings that do what they do at a high level, like handle the ball, score the ball at a high level. Have had MVP talks here and there.
Yeah.
But just career arc wise, just like it's marred by what they can't do in the postseason.
That's tough. Tough.
It clicked kind of when we were talking about it. I was like, wait, hold on. There might be another career arc that's eerily similar in this sense too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's interesting. No, that's really spicy.
So throw that question back to whoever threw you this question, and then we'll get the response.
I got you. Moving along, man. Warriors can't catch a break.
Lord, yeah, Steph.
Man, and I guess look, it doesn't seem like it's too bad. Her X-rays came back negative, so
like a couple weeks.
And I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to be cautious with him, but more so, what does this mean for the Warriors this season? Because people were talking about the Warriors potentially making a move at the trade deadline, even though I haven't heard too many talks and rumors of like legitimate, things happening. So it doesn't seem like, that's going to happen right now. That very well may change. But as of right now, it doesn't really seem like it. But it seems like the offseason is where that may really come into play, because I honestly don't think Steph, Clay, and Draymond play another season together.
It's kind of scary.
I think that time is a wrap. And I just think they're getting to that place where contracts fall, where they're looking for as far as the team and what they want to do.
Yep.
And Draymond's already kind of came out and said that the writing's on the wall. So it's not like it's something that doesn't seem to be an ongoing discussion or something that hasn't kind of been floating around. So,
yeah,
what does it look like with this Warriors dynasty potentially coming to an end?
I don't know. And the weird thing is, even though Draymond has kind of said this stuff, I feel like Clay would be the one to go.
I always thought that as well.
Just because like Jordan is there, the motor has always been Dre. Like, yeah. I know they've kind of floated when Ben Simmons could have gotten traded, that Ben Simmons could have went there. But I don't know. That motor is something that can't be taught. Like, and yes, they fill the same role, but heart is heart. You can't coach that.
And they don't have a replacement, which is the difference. Because I'm not necessarily trying to compare JP to Clay. I'm not trying to do that.
Yeah.
But in terms of somebody that you have the opportunity to groom to be somebody that plays alongside Steph and ultimately, I would imagine, serves as his successor. Yeah. If I'm the Warriors, I don't think like that's too far out to be considering. It would make more sense for Clay to be the one that's moved, but I don't know. I don't know. That's a big decision for the Warriors to make. But I also feel like this year was really their last year of their extremely long window of winning championships. But they kind of had a horrible start with the whole JP and Draymond. My words today, y'all. Jesus Christ. With the whole JP and Draymond thing. That got the season off to a horrible start. Just haven't been able really to win like away games this entire year. You had Steph go out for a month. You got people, Wiggins has been in and out of the lineup. And then the young guys that you have been banking on, they're not necessarily producing. And you lost some of your better bench players in the offseason. So they're in a tough spot where I don't think anybody's necessarily counting them out, but I don't know if anybody necessarily thinks they're ready to contend for a title. And granted, it's still a little bit early, but they just don't seem to have the makings of it right now. And if there is an early exit for them, albeit first round or, God forbid, play in, I don't know. Really interesting situation for them.
Yeah, I think it doesn't faze me in terms of playoff wise. Steph got hurt last year right before playoffs. And I feel like if anything, this gives him more time to rest. It's just what they do in that time where he's out. Like, if they start to really squander that opportunity and start to put some L's on the board, you might hear some knocks at their door trade deadline this few days, like you don't know how antsy they are to get stuff shaken up. So I don't know. It's been eerily quiet this deadline. So I wouldn't be shocked if they made some shake. Wiseman hasn't been, the pick that they kind of thought that he would be. So I'm interested to see where they move some stuff. With that being said, with Steph out, what do you think this does for the All-Star game?
It definitely makes it interesting. I'll tell you that. If they're going to take a bench player, which I think they would take the bench player to replace the starter first, right?
It'd be Ja, for sure.
It will be Ja, but it should not be Ja.
Whoa!
It should be Shai Gilgeous. It should be SGA. SGA should be the starter if Steph is not starting. I think it's clear as day, honestly. I don't know. You look at the man's numbers, I don't see how I told you I thought honestly he should have been a starter from jump, but knowing how things play out, it makes sense that he wasn't. But if Steph is out, it should be SGA.
I don't disagree with you. Like, he's had the better year for sure. I think voting wise, I think people would disagree with you. But yeah, I didn't think about it that way. But with that being said, we talked about reserves last ep.
We did.
Now they're out.
They are.
Boy, oh boy. When I talked about bigs that can't do anything getting in, here. Not saying that man can't do anything, but I'd say it ASAP right away.
Man.
Why the hell is Jaren Jackson Jr. in this All-Star game? With what we know with the stat inflation in Memphis, they're giving him 2 to 3 times more stocks. For those who don't know, stocks are steals and blocks. per game, and that he's missed close to 20 games already. And we talked about if you're here in the All-Star game, you have to play. Who is in Memphis voting? Why? How? There's no way. There's no way that people are sitting there like, that's someone I need to see in the All-Star game. Get that man a jersey. Who's clamoring to see him? This feels like Andrew Wiggins 2.0, and he's a reserve. And I was very upset about Andrew Wiggins last year. How? What world do people want to see this man ball when he's in half a night?
Listen. I don't disagree with most of your sentiments, but Jaren Jackson was probably the biggest surprise on the reserve list for sure. But we got the majority. We got about 85-90% right. We got about 85-90% right. We said Paul George should be in the conversation, and he got it right. We said SGA should be there. Said Dame was more than likely going to be there. Said Laurie should be there. Absolutely. Said Josh should be there, and said Sabonis should be there. So Jaren was really the only person that was confused. But we said it was going to go over the front court person. But I still don't know why Ant didn't get that nod or De'Aaron Fox.
Like,
I still think that should have been one of those two.
Ant deserves that. Like Ant, he's like I said, Minnesota needs any splashes of joy they can get. There is no way in hell that Jaren Jackson should be in that All-Star game over Ant. No one. Ask any NBA fan. Ask any non-NBA fan. Who would you like to see in an NBA All-Star game? Jaren Jackson Jr. or Anthony Edwards? Who do you think they're going to answer, Steve? Who would anyone want to see in that?
Anthony Edwards.
No one is clamoring for this man. Who is voting? Oh man, no, like
those Memphis fans ride hard, bro. The Memphis fans ride hard, bro.
Man, they got duped. They got hoodwinked. They saw those stats when they're coming out of those games. Like, Jaren Jackson led the team with 6 blocks. That sounds good. But wait until that investigation comes out. And they're like, wait, hold on.
Investigation.
Dog, for those who don't know, a great Twitter individual or Reddit individual, it started somewhere, but they went in and looked. They're like, why does this man average like so many more blocks and steals a game? They went in. They saw that at home games, he was getting 2 to 3 times more steals and blocks per game than he was getting at away games. And then they looked at it, they'd watch film, and they're like, oh, wait, the statistician is just lying. Like they're trying to bump this man's stats for whatever reason. Maybe the parlays weren't hitting and he needed some extra assurance. When you saw what is happening in Utah, no, think what is happening in Memphis. That they are duping the average fan, the parlay kings, to look at these stats, like, yeah, that man's an all-star. And then we go to the games, we're like, hold on, wait a second.
Not the parlay kings. I'm weak.
My roommate is one of them. Just hit his first one. Shouts out Tyler Hero for securing that bag for him. But Lord Almighty, like I said stuff about Bam. I sounded like a hater for Bam. Shouts out to Bam Adebayo. I didn't mean to do that. But what I do mean is that Jaren Jackson shouldn't be an all-star for the amount of games missed, for the stats he doesn't get, and for above average 2 seed in the West. Like, what has he really done to contribute on a game-to-game basis other than, play defense and hit some threes sometimes? In those 30-ish games that he's played, that Ant hasn't done for Minnesota, and they're maybe a couple games back on that standing. Or De'Aaron Fox on an overachieving Sacramento Kings team. How does he not deserve it above a Jaren Jackson Jr.? Like that is, as Stephen A. Smith would say, blasphemous. It's ludicrous. It's awful.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
All of the
I think the biggest thing for me with Jaren Jackson, outside of the inflating stats, which, they can look into that inflate gate if they want to. But, I think the biggest thing was that he just missed so many games. I just think that's big in the regular season. Like, injury or, like, whatever the case is, if you miss X amount of games, I just like, how do you play? Like, and if you're not one of the top players in the league, like, that may have, like, started the season late because of injury or whatever the case may be, that's a little bit different. Like, if Bron missed the first month of the season, he's probably still going to get voted into the All-Star game. Same with your KDs, that, like, your Lucas, your Stephs, all of that. So if you're not one of those players, though, I don't think that should apply. You know what I'm saying? But
AD was an MVP candidate up until he got hurt. They were throwing him in that conversation. If we're going off missed games and who should be in it, why not AD than Jaren Jackson at that point? So I don't understand it. Yeah, I guess for the West, everything is going to be set in stone with Steph possibly missing. I just wanted to give a shout out. Lauri Markkanen made it. We were right on that.
We were right on that.
Shocking that the Utah Jazz have an all-star this year with how their offseason went. Didn't see that coming in the slightest. There was one more thing. Oh, our snubs as well. Know it's Ant. We know it's De'Aaron Fox for the West. For the East, Jalen Brunson has been a bucket this year. He's been very good. Same with the murmurs I've heard for James Harden. Quote unquote, the disrespect. How do we feel about both of them also missing out on a possible all-star nomination?
I knew that both Knicks were not going to get picked, but I thought that both Knicks were deserving. So it's hard to say one was snubbed. Yeah, it's hard to say because who are the guards, right? Who are the guards for the East? It's Jaylen Brown, who we said. We said DeMar, more than likely. Since Halliburton is back, definitely. Yeah. And then it goes Drew. So I feel like Drew is the one that everybody wants to argue. And I get it. I get it because his numbers offensively especially aren't as glamorous as some of the other snubs, we may be talking about in terms of Brunson and Harden. But I don't know. There were a lot of games where, Drew had that stretch where he played, I think, like 5 or 6 games without Giannis or Chris. But even him playing the majority of the season without Chris, having to play more minutes and stepping up, in the minutes that he played and doing what he really wasn't able to do last year in the playoffs, which was give us that same, what's the word I'm looking for, production on both sides of the ball. And he's done that this year. So I don't know if there are snubs. I feel like people say Harden's a snub, and I feel like a good portion of that has to do with Harden's name, like with him being Harden. Like, oh, he's Harden, he should be an all-star. And I'm not saying he's not playing at an all-star level or respectable level at all, but he's also not the key to Philly. You know what I'm saying? So Philly got their all-star. Yeah. Well deservingly. So I personally don't think it's a snub. If I was gonna replace somebody with Brunson, it would be Julius Randle because Brunson was the better player on that team.
Yes. I was waiting for you to say it because I was sitting here, I was like, when I put my finger up, I was like, I have an idea. The same thing that can be said with James Harden not being the motor of Philly, the same can be said with the Knicks because the Knicks missed out on the playoffs last year, correct me if I'm wrong, with healthy Julius Randle. Because they made it the year before. That was when Knicks mania. Long, like all that was going crazy. But then last year, same team that you have, couldn't get it done. They bring in Jalen Brunson, and now we see his resurgence. I don't understand why he doesn't get the King's reward for bring that team back from the depths. Like, yes, Julius Randle has been a consistent piece. He's always been able to put the ball in the basket, but in terms of winning games, ask Knicks fan extraordinaire Rob Perez, tweet at him, hey, who do you think was more deserving as a Knicks player to be an all-star? And I feel like he would give the most unbiased answer out of any fan because he is a diehard Knicks fan, unfortunately. So I will go out there and I'll tweet, hey, Wob, who do you think should have been the all-star? And he might give a very poignant answer like, hey, it doesn't matter, we got one. Which they may feel that way. But I feel like Jalen definitely, hopefully by at least next year might get it, but that is tough in the East. Like a big like Julius Randle is going to be able to get there more often than not with the amount of bigs that are in the East. But Jalen Brunson, he's going to have to compete with guys that missed this year, like James Harden, like Trae Young, like LaMelo when he's healthy. So I feel like Garland even. So it's going to be a lot harder for a guy like Jalen Brunson to see an all-star game in the future. And I feel like this is a good one shot that he had. And I'd say that's why I'd really want him in there over Julius Randle at this point.
Those are great points. Because guard play in the East is actually insane. I know we talk a lot about the West and rightfully so, but guard play in the East has definitely taken gigantic step in the last couple of years with players like Drew, with the emergence of Darius Garland, and now Donovan Mitchell.
Weirdly enough, this is going to be a really fun All-Star game. Like looking at the names, this is going to be very competitive.
You want to?
We have Giannis drafting, and I know that that's never really good, but
I really don't like when he drafts. I really don't.
It's so bad. It's so bad because once KD got to draft a team, it was great. That was when we had some parity. Giannis is almost too thoughtful because I know with that first reserves pick, he's taking Drew instead of Embiid. And why? I get it. But we could win, Giannis. We could really win if you just take that first draft pick seriously. Drew's going to be on the board.
I was going to say, realistically, Drew's going to be on the board, bro.
LeBron is not petty in the slightest. He's not going to be like, oh, I know Giannis wants him. I want Drew Holiday. No, he's not going to do it. Just take Embiid and then take Drew with your next one. Please, Giannis. Because every year, it's just like the teams are there and then he'll pick. I remember that year, I think he picked Jokic and then like Gobert. Yeah, just every big. And I'm like, buddy, make this fun, please.
This is why I don't like Giannis being the captain. I'm not gonna hold you. I was really hoping KD got more fan votes. I'm not gonna lie. I really was.
This is the year that he figures it out, and that he's like, hey, okay. I will draft a good team.
But no, man, I think that's it. By the time this episode is out, it'll be the trade deadline. So by the time we have our next episode, there'll be a lot more to talk about. We'll talk about all the finalized trades. We'll talk about things leading into the All-Star break and carrying on. But yeah, man, this has been episode 2. Any parting words for the people? Mr. Brown, Mr. Emilio.
Sponsorship coming soon. Fruity Pebbles. That's all.
I can't believe this guy. This guy here, man.
That Buick commercial. I don't even drive that. But I'm going to get
before he says anything else ridiculous, we'll catch y'all next week. See y'all next time. Peace.